Hi, YouTube. I'm just waiting for TikTok to turn up. I go back and forth, TikTok, Instagram, but I always put these lives on YouTube. That's where they're saved. So, okay, I'm just waiting for people to turn up. Hello, Emily. You've been here before. Okay, while we're waiting for people to turn up, I'd love to know where you're from and how old your kids are. I'm hopped up on medication. I've got a cold, so we'll see how long I last. My voice isn't at its best right now. So, where are you from and how old are your kids? I'm here in Vancouver, Canada, and my kids are 28 and 33. So I got a cold. I can't talk very well. Okay, so where are you from and how old are your children? Okay. I've been going back and forth doing these lives on Instagram and TikTok. I'm just curious, are either of you on Instagram following me also? I don't know if I'm just speaking to a whole different audience here or if there's some crossover. Just curious. So while we're waiting for people to turn up, I'd love to know where you're from, how old your kids are, and are you also following me on Instagram? I'm just curious, is it just like I've got my TikTok community and my Instagram community, or are they similar? Are there a lot of people who join both? I'm just curious. I'm in Nevada. My boys are 2 and 12. That's a big split. 2 and 12. I have a 5-year split between my kids. A lot of people ask. It wasn't planned. I had a surgery and I had a miscarriage in between the two kids. Worked out great though, because I got tons of time with my first before my second came along. So it actually worked out really well. SoCal, Southern California, 35 with a 19-month-old and 6 months pregnant. Excellent, welcome. So you're right in the middle of it. You're going to have a toddler and a newborn. Excellent. Okay, let's get going with this. I've got a cold. I'm kind of hopped up on medication, so I'll do my best. My voice is pretty bad. So anyway, if you go on the link above, you'll see everything I have to offer in my business. You can download my free behavior board, buy one of my mini toddler courses or my big boot camp course, 3 to 12 years old, or you can hire me for coaching. That's all done. Hi, I am. That's all done on Zoom if you want to hire me. So I do have a cold, so that's why I sound really funny. 37, Montana. I have 15, 12, 9, 7, and 6. 15, 12, 9, 7. Wow, you're busy. I think the biggest family I ever worked with in coaching was 8 kids. From memory, it might have been bigger, but I don't think so. I think 8 was it was just about setting up system after system, just getting really organized, especially on school mornings. Okay, so parenting questions. Let's get going with that. I'm going back and forth right now. Instagram's really picked up lately. So I'm doing lives on there also. So if I'm not on here one day, I'm probably doing it on Instagram. Okay, 3-year-old nonstop whining and complaining about not wanting to do things, how to go about it. Okay, that's just a sign that you're not a leader. So set yourself up as a leader. You could start with my free behavior board, or you can buy my boot camp course, which is a 5-week course teaching you how to be a leader, or you can hire me for coaching. So yeah, it's just about your leadership. Check out the behavior board. It sort of tells you how I go about things. And if you want to go further, there's the course and coaching. But yeah, it just says to me, he doesn't respect you. That's all. When they respect you, when you're a leader, they don't tend to whine. Their emotions tend to be really just sort of more stable. They don't tend to be whining or acting out or anything when you're a leader. It's just the way it goes. That's why I teach leadership. Remember, we're never fixing kids. We're fixing and teaching parents here. So I got a cold. I'm having a hard time talking. I don't know how long I can go for here. Everyone's putting down their ages. I guess one person started it. 30 from the UK, Manchester. Welcome. Have just turned 2-year-old and no idea what I want. When I want another. Yeah, I had 5 years between my two. It wasn't planned that way, but it worked out great because my son started grade 1 when I had a newborn. So I had all this time with each child. So, but there's no magic number, no magic age split in there. I've seen it be really good with close kids and the opposite. And, I've never seen any consistent, where it's absolutely, well, this is what you should do. Never seen it. Pediatrician says assessments are really realizable until after 8 years. Are really realizable? I don't know what you mean. Until after 8 years. I don't know. some of my clients are pediatricians, so um, I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, unreliable. Pediatrician says assessments are really I'm not going to disagree with a pediatrician. Enough said. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm just waiting for parenting questions. And I am having a hard time talking. I've got a cold today. I actually skipped the gym this morning. For me to skip the gym is I go every day. It's a big deal. Just, it's not a normal day if I haven't worked out. So today was not a normal day. I was just going to read something, but my voice is I got such a sore throat. I don't really want to talk too much. So I'll just wait for your questions. Okay, how to stop a toddler from biting at school when they don't do it at home. I had this question on Instagram yesterday 2 or 3 times. I got an email about it. I don't answer parenting questions via email, but I got an email about it. And then you're asking that. So I almost wonder if it's the same person. But my answer is the same. There's nothing you can do with a toddler when you're not there. They're all about the here and the now. They live in the moment. So if you're not there, there's nothing you can do about it. The daycare workers are usually they're used to stuff like that. Usually, if they're really experienced, it's up to them to sort of deal with it. But yeah, if it's under 3-year-old, you can't do anything if you're not right there with them. They're in the moment. They're about consistent corrective actions right in the moment. Okay. Do you think there's a certain way to parent to have kids grow up to have a close relationship? Really depends on where they go in their lives. My kids, I wouldn't call them close at all. And because they have nothing in common, they went in such different directions. So I think that has a lot to do with it. They love each other, but I mean, they don't hang out. But because they went in such different directions in their lives, I think that has a lot to do with it. Who they end up with, where they hang out, what they do. I think a lot of it has to do with what you have in common. Like my daughter and I see each other every day. We have tons in common. We're both obsessed with health and fitness, and I see her every morning at the gym. So I think that's it. I think it's more about what you have in common with someone. You can still get together and really enjoy each other, but you don't tend to hang out a lot. What are some of the systems you had in place when your kids were younger? Well, one of the things I talk about a lot is my mom's banking system. I had Mom's Bank. You can look that up. I talk about money management with kids. I have tons of videos on that. I've done so many videos. I'll do another one actually, because I think I just wrote down. Yeah, I did. I already wrote down. It's one of the videos I'll do again. That's one really good system that I had in place. Another one was my as soon as method. So whenever they wanted to watch TV or do something, they'd say, "Can we watch TV?" I'd say, "Sure, as soon as you finished your chores." So I never had to tell them what to do. It's the as soon as method. Another one was the toy rotation system. So the toys were rotated. They only had like a very small number of toys out at any given time. So they were never bored because I was always rotating toys around, maybe once a week, once a month, whatever. Another one was they never got to eat or drink anything unless they were sitting at the kitchen table. That was a rule. They understood, they connected the dots really early on. There's no way I would allow kids to walk around my house with food or drink. I'm very fussy. I just don't, and I don't see the need for it. And often when kids do walk around with food, you're sort of treating food almost like an activity rather than a necessity. Like if you want to eat, you have to sit down and eat. Otherwise, they just sort of treat it like fun. So they'll leave food all over the house. And yeah, so I had a whole bunch of systems like that. But I would say the thing I did the most with my kids was I played with them. I played with them all the time, just goofy stuff, And that's part of building yourself up as a leader because you want to be friends with your kids. You want to be close to them. You want to enter their world to connect with your children. How do I well, this is a pleaser parent question. And, I'm very against pleaser parent stuff. How do I get a preteen to enjoy doing homework? Why would you want to? I get asked this stuff all the time. How do I make them enjoy doing chores? You don't. Why would you want them to think that they have to enjoy everything in life? That's the pleaser parent style. We want them to enjoy everything. We don't want them to do anything they don't enjoy. You're trying to please them all the time. I don't do that. I used to teach my kids, you got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. Like, why would I try and make chores fun? So they go into a job when they're adults. They say, this isn't any fun. My mom made everything fun. You see, you're kind of raising that kind of attitude. It's got a little bit of a self-entitled attitude. So don't try and make everything fun. It's okay to learn how to do the crappy stuff, like clean the toilet. Actually, I like doing that. I love cleaning, but most people don't. So you have to learn to do the yucky stuff. Don't try and make it fun. Just make it something that you have to do. That's where self-discipline comes in. You don't want to try and make life, everything in life, fun for them. That's the participation awards and all that other please your parents stuff. You're setting them up to be self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. Because if you're always trying to make everything fun, the real world is going to be a real slap in the face to them. You didn't validate my feelings. I'm just a bus driver, lady. I mean, that's what you're getting. You see what I mean? Yeah. I know I'm exaggerating. I do that. How do I get the 14-month-old to listen? You don't. You don't teach them. You're not talking. Yeah, you don't. I don't know how else to answer that because my voice is really bad today. I got a cold. So I feel myself going into a rant with that one. You don't. You act so that they follow. There's a difference. Yeah, you lead, they will follow. But you don't try and get them to listen to you. Just doesn't. You can try. If it works, let me know. I've never done it. You're 100% correct. What was I correct about? The pleaser parent style? Yeah, that's what I'm up against in my business. It bodes very well for my business because I get a lot of those clients after they realize that stuff doesn't work. So, but I'd rather not. I would rather people not struggle. The pleaser parent style is the new style parenting. It came out about 30 years ago. I saw it coming. And I said, boy, oh boy, are we ever in for it. And yeah, anyway, and kind of are. I mean, yeah, it's when you try and make everything fun and easy and you don't want your kids to have any challenges in life, you're not preparing them for the real world. You know, there's that saying, prepare your kids for the world, not the world for your kids. Those are the same parents that go into school and tell the teachers how they want their children to be treated, you know, like that entitled kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not good. My daycare provider puts my 1-year-old in a crib if she has to tell him no more than once. Yeah, I can't comment on that. I'm not a daycare provider, and I'm not going to critique what other people do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to criticize that. Doesn't seem appropriate for the age. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't specialize in daycare. I don't know how they run. Maybe it's for the safety of other kids. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's more redirection than getting them to listen. That can be a little bit of a slippery slide, that one, because if you're always redirecting, here's something fun. If they're doing something naughty, they tend to learn that, hey, wait a minute, if I do something naughty, I'm going to get a reward for that. So you got to be careful with that. Redirection is fine. It's in small doses, but I don't overdo that. And I only really do that with under 16 months old. That's the 0 to 15-month-old stage. I only redirect really in that stage. But even that, I'm kind of careful with it. Okay. Would you ever write a book? Yeah, I hate writing, so I don't think I ever will. I might have a ghostwriter one day. I have been approached, but I'm not quite ready for it. I got a lot on my plate right now. So, sorry, my daughter's just texting me. I drop everything when I hear from my kids. Doing a live. Doing a liver, I said. I'm not doing a liver. Okay. I've never read a book on parenting or kids or anything. Everything I've learned has been that kids taught me all this stuff. But I will tell you something. If you're ever going to buy a book on parenting, look at the author and decide these two things. They have to have these two criteria. They have to have finished the job with their own kids. If they haven't lived with teenagers, how can they teach parenting? Like, it's a whole different thing. So they have to finish the job with their own kids. And number two is that they have to have had experience with hundreds of other kids. I didn't learn a lot with my own kids. I was a leader. I got respect when they were tiny, sailed right through the teen years. How can I teach that? What if I get clients with teenagers and I already had respect? I worked with violent, delinquent teenagers. That's where I learned most of what I teach. If you can get respect with delinquent teenagers, you don't need my help. I've been hired by tons of my clients are teachers, principals, child psychologists, doctors, people with, child development degrees up the wazoo, but parenting's different. It just is. Do you know it's personal? That's why, because I couldn't do what they do. Anyway, I've never been hired by a youth worker, not once, not that I know of. Anyway, and I think I would know. I would pick up on the vernacular, how they speak. So yeah, I've never been hired by a youth worker. If you can work with troubled teens and get their respect, you'll never need my help. That's the PhD in all this stuff. How can we fix it? If the kids are really spoiled and not really appreciative, well, just stop spoiling them. Whatever got you into trouble, stop doing it. So yeah. Your earrings are cute. My daughter got me these. I have 2 holes in each ear. She has 1. We both have the same earrings. Geez, they are nasty to take to put back in though. Okay, how do I try to redirect pessimism with my 10-year-old son? Always tattling and negative, has 2 sisters. I don't know the dynamic there. I always say if it's just general stuff like that, work on your leadership skills, and that stuff doesn't happen. By the way, if they're tattling, I would say something like this. Do you know, if there's no blood spurting out of an artery or if there's no bone sticking out of skin, I don't want to hear it. And if I do, there's going to be a consequence. So yeah. Are his sisters older? Yeah, I don't know. Work on your leadership skills. I do have a whole course on that, 3 to 12-year-olds. It's called the boot camp. It's up in everything I have is up in the link above. So yeah, if you're a leader, they tend to, it just seems to make them more positive. They feel safer. Everything just seems to flow when you're a leader. Everything. What would a consequence for tattling be? If they're younger, if they tattle on that person, then they get to play with their favorite toy or their favorite activity, whatever the other one does. So yeah. And you have to discern that. You say, don't tattle. Tattling is when you try and get someone else in trouble for no good reason. That's what tattling is. So I would put that on the behavior board. I just found out I'm pregnant, 35. I'm freaking out. It's scary. It'll be all right. Lots of, people survive through it. Actually, I hated being pregnant. I was sick as a dog. I hated it. Great once they pop out, though. It was funny because I said there's postpartum depression, but there's no prepartum depression. Like I hated being pregnant. Yeah, I was so sick and in pain and it was awful. My body just isn't made to shoot kids out. I had surgeries. I had back surgery after my son and heart surgery after my daughter, pregnancy induced. So yeah. Oh God, it's horrible. That was rare though, very rare. So I didn't mean to scare you. A lot of people love being pregnant. 3-year-old in the no stage, he won't listen, just gets angry. He's 3 years old. He can know right from wrong by now. Start with my behavior board. It's completely free in the link above. If you want more, check out the course. That's the boot camp course, and that teaches you how to get respect in 5 weeks. If you want the next level up, that's coaching one-on-one with me. Just start with the behavior board. It's free. Gives you an idea of what I do. Okay. And lots of people get results just with the behavior board. Is there a good age gap? I just talked about that at the top of this live. No, I don't think there is. I think that you can argue everything with that. I've known families who have a huge age gap and they're just fine. But they say after 7 years of a gap, they don't tend to be raised as siblings. It's more of they don't tend to relate as siblings. Like my brother's like 16 years older than me. I always sort of felt like an only child, and I'm sure he did too, because we didn't grow up together, right? So yeah, I had 3 adults in the house. I didn't have a kid. My brother was 16 when I was born. So yeah. So they say 7 years is when they don't relate to siblings. It doesn't mean that that's negative though. Like, is that bad? Do they, they're kind of more raised as only children if there's a 7-year gap. That's what I've heard, but I don't know. I liked having 5 years between my kids. It was because of my medical issues and I had a miscarriage in between. I miscarried multiples too. That would have been great. But anyway, so I had a 5-year gap between my two, and it worked out great because my son started grade 1 and then I had a newborn. I got first 5 years of his life. It was just me, focus on him. I loved it. And then he went off to school. Then I could focus on my little girl. So worked out perfect. I didn't plan it that way, but it worked out perfect. I know I seem different today. I've got a cold, so I'm being very careful with my voice because it's very sore. Not my voice, it's sore, my throat. Okay. How do you keep your toddler from running off? That's in the category of 4 annoying traits that kids are either born with or they're not. One of them is tantrums. They're either going to have them or they're not. My son had them. My daughter never did. They're going to be born to climb. They either climb or they don't. Both my kids were very cautious, so didn't tend to climb. Aggressiveness, they either hit or they don't. Neither of my kids had that. And runners, they're either going to do it or they're not. And here's what you do with runners. You put a harness on them before you go out. And then as soon as they start running, you clip them in and you say, no, you stay with me. And then keep them clipped in for the rest of that outing. Don't keep unclip, clip, unclip. Yeah, it's going to be awful. Yeah, but you got to be willing to go through the storm to get to the rainbow. Everyone's trying to avoid a scene. That's where the lessons are. When they realize you're coming down with this leadership, idea, and you're starting to exercise it, they're going to fight you back because they were probably in charge before. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. but it's worth it. I signed up to your newsletter. Where can I find your behavior board? The email, a lot of people have asked me that today. I don't know why. So some days I get a whole bunch of people ask me that. It's actually the attachments. There's 2 attachments at the bottom. One is the instructions for the behavior board, and the other one is more sample of the behavior board. So check that out. You would have got an email after you signed up. Is it normal for 9 and 6-year-old boys to keep fighting? Only if you're not a leader. If you're a leader, they just don't fight. So work on your leadership skills. It's everything. Siblings who are fighting, I can't give you a quick answer here because I don't know what kind of parent you are. I don't know how they fight. Is it physical, verbal? Are they really cruel to each other? Is there like emotional blackmail going on and all sorts of stuff? So I don't know. I'd have to investigate that to really give you some good advice. But check out, I do talk about sibling rivalry in my boot camp course. I talk about a whole bunch of stuff in there. If you just go through it, like I have all the lessons each week, 5 weeks, and then I also have additional tips thrown in. Every single week there's new additional tips. Money management, media management, bedtime battles, all that stuff. It's all thrown in. So you can go through and read all the tips, find the ones that suit you and read all those, but then you go through the lessons week by week. I didn't develop that course by myself. I had a whole group going through it with me, and they helped me do that. So they were great. Okay. What do I do when I'm ignoring a tantrum and they're trying to hold on to me? Child is 3. Does it matter? Just pretend you don't notice them. If they're hitting, then you restrain them. But if they're holding on to you, I might just sort of peel them off me and just kind of look and then go do the dishes like I didn't even notice them. They're only trying to get your attention. If they get it, they win. They understand that. Parents don't, but kids do. Parents always think, oh, but they need me. That if ignoring a tantrum damages your child, you got a lot bigger stuff to worry about. Like if your children are loved, you're meeting their needs. Ignoring a tantrum is nothing to them. I know there's all this talk about regulating their emotions and discussing it all with them. That's garbage. That was invented. I saw that coming 30 years ago. That was invented to feed the mom. Has nothing to do with the little kids. Yelling and hits me? Yeah, I don't know the age. What's the age? I lose track of who's asked what, so I don't always connect how old your kids are. Okay, so when grandparents interfere, I can't really help you with that because you're asking me how do you deal with other adults. I teach parenting, not how to deal with adults. But what I would say, and I do obviously have to do this in coaching when I'm talking to people, and I say lead with your feelings and say, when you undermine me in front of my kids, it hurts my feelings. Lead with your feelings. Don't lead with what they're doing wrong. You're just going to get them defensive. Okay, and anyone who's Badunskiing, they're not usually going to be that compliant with this because if they're Badinskis anyway, they're going to be difficult personalities. Like I got a grandchild. I've never told my adult kids what to do. I didn't even tell them what to do when they were kids, hardly ever. It's none of my business what they do and how they parent. It's none of my damn business. And that's how I'm going to be. I've got a grandchild coming in a couple of months. It's none of my business how they raise that child. I'll just sit back and watch the show. They ask my advice. I'll be very careful how I hand it out. I don't think they will. My son knows exactly how he was parented. Growing up, they always said they're going to parent the way I did. So we'll see. They're going to have their own style. They're not going to do everything the way I think they should. But it's none of my damn business, is it? Unless they're abusing my grandchild, which I couldn't see happening. But see what I'm saying? So yeah, you got a Badinsky in the family. They're hard to deal with. They're just difficult people. I don't have anyone like that in my whole life. I don't have anyone snarky or bossy or Badinsky in my whole life. I culled all those people. I'm 63 years old. You can get rid of people you don't enjoy. You're my age. Yeah, I tossed them all. Okay. Natalie. Oh, he's 2 years old. What can I do? Well, you don't tell your son anything. It's not about words with a 2-year-old. It's all about consistent corrective actions. I try to tell my son not to do something. You physically say no, and then you just pull him away from whatever he was doing. It's consistent corrective actions. It is not words with a 2-year-old. It just isn't. Their language is not words. Their language is actions. So whenever you're trying to use words in these mini therapy sessions, which are so trendy right now, they're all just invented for the mom. They're garbage because they're just for the mother. They have nothing to do with the toddler. Nothing. So, but yeah, it's very condescending to try and talk things out with a 2-year-old. It's very patronizing. It's not their language. You enter their world. Don't expect them to find their inner adult. One of the stupidest things I ever saw? I remember the first time I ever saw this. Get on eye level, hold their hands and say, use your words. How freaking patronizing and bitchy is that? Like, I just couldn't believe it the first time I ever heard that. A 2-year-old, when they're kicking and screaming, that is their words. That is their language. They are communicating. Don't be, use your words. Oh, I hate that. How patronizing. Can you imagine as an adult if someone said that to you? Use your words. It's the same effect on a child. They're like looking at you like you're nuts. Okay. If I need help with a 16-year-old, do I get your course? No, that's not for teenagers. Right now, the only option I have with teenagers is coaching. I haven't figured out, the reason is that when most people come to me with teenagers, it's not easy stuff. Usually when people hire me when they've got teenagers, it's difficult stuff. And that's usually always coaching. So, and I have to get to know the parent. The kids don't matter to me. It's all the parents. I have to figure out what you're all about, how you speak, you know, how you've parented in the past. So right now, I guess I'll have a parenting video or a parenting course out there for teenagers one day. But right now, I don't really have the time to think it through. Oh, you look amazing for your age. I'm 63. I work on it really hard. I get that a lot. Do you know when I'm 50 to mid 55, there's a huge split. You can see when people have looked after themselves all their lives and those that haven't. I really noticed that. And my friends growing up who used to tease me about, I was so into health and fitness. They used to tease me about it. They don't tease me anymore. Yeah, I put in a lot of work. Okay. Plus, I think you got to have a positive attitude. I try and laugh every day. Do you believe in sleep training at 20 months? You're 21 months old. I actually have a bedtime battles course. I don't know what you mean by sleep training. That's a generic term. Could mean millions of different things. So check out my bedtime battles course. That's brand new. It's only been out for about 2.5 weeks now. It's in the link above. If you're interested, check that out. Goes through step by step how I get kids in bed and how you keep them there. Not everyone has problems with both. Some parents can get their kids to bed. I don't let anyone in this room, by the way. Some parents can get their kids into bed and not keep them there, and vice versa. So that's why it's a 2-part course: how to get them into bed and then how to keep them there. So yeah, it's an ugly night. It's ugly, but it's worth it. I know I worked with this one family, and it was a much older kid and a little toddler out in the hallway. I live downtown in an apartment building. We've got a lot of little kids in this building, and then when they get older, they tend to move out to bigger homes in the suburbs more. But anyway, oh, I forgot what I was saying. So I got a cold. I forget what I'm saying all the time, even when I'm not sick. Okay. Oh, sleep training. Oh, I know. I had this client a while back, and they had a much older kid who would not stay in bed. Anyway, and I said, well, this is what you have to do. And I told them what to do. And the parents were up till 5 in the morning. And 5 in the morning, trying to keep this kid in bed. And I said, yeah, it's going to be hell. Anyway, he never got up again. Not once. That was the one night of sheer hell. And you could just imagine the parents were cursing me out. Darn that, Lisa. They said they weren't saying darn. They told me what they were calling me. That was great. Okay. How are you perfect all the time with your answer? I wish I had 5% of yours. I'm not perfect at all. I've been doing this for 52 years, like working with kids. So I know this stuff inside out, upside down. That's all. If you're really proficient in something, it just flies out of your mouth. Don't ask me about bookkeeping or taxes. I'll probably wet myself and drool. Yeah, I hate all that stuff. But parenting was always easy for me. Kids, I always found kids easy. I always could figure them out. I always knew how to get the best out of them. That's what leadership is, bring the best out in kids. That's all it is, just bring out the best in them. And they're proud of themselves. They have high self-esteem. They like themselves when they're with you. That was my thing. I was good at it. And, but yeah, it just flies out. But don't ask me about anything else. It's all I'm good at. Oh, except cleaning. I'm good at cleaning. Ask me about cleaning. I love cleaning. And fitness. I love fitness. That's it. The rest of it. Oh, sewing. Yeah, I'm good at a few things. By the way, if you're also following me on Instagram, you'll know Instagram's just been picking up like crazy lately. And so I'm going back and forth, Instagram and TikTok with the lives. And so if you're also following me on Instagram, keep an eye out for that. I do have I only have 2 regularly scheduled lives now. Did I change it on here? I can't even remember if I did. TikTok lives. Because it used to be 2 a week on TikTok, and now I've got just one a week, one on here and one on Instagram that are regularly scheduled. The rest, like the one right now, is just I just turn up when I'm in the mood to do it or I've got time. Okay. 3-year-old son is hitting and throwing. I try to stay calm, but I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. 3-year-old hitting and throwing. I would suggest check out the course. The course is all about setting you up as a leader. Remember, we're never fixing kids here. We're fixing and teaching parents. You lead, they will follow. That stuff just doesn't happen when you're a leader. They would be embarrassed to act out. When they've got a leader as a parent, it's embarrassing to be rude to that parent. It just is. If you look up to someone, like in your life, you've had a mentor or a boss you loved or a sports coach that you love, someone that you really look up to, would you ever be rude to them? Think about it. It's the same thing. When you're a leader, you're really connected with your kids. They tell you everything. You're also accountable. If I messed up, my kids loved it. Boy, they loved it. Mom, didn't you mess up? Yeah. What do you want? We'd love to go to the water slide park after school tomorrow. Okay, fine. Let's pack our suits. So yeah, I was accountable too. That's what made it work. That's why I never heard I hate you or anything. Not once. I never heard anything like that. Because why would I? I was a leader. They just don't say stuff like that to a leader. My son was 15 and he wanted to rebel, obviously. He had something in him. He wanted to rebel. And he was mad at me one day. And I said, what? And he goes, you've been a really difficult mother. And I was shocked. We were like really close and everything. I said, what are you talking about? I thought I was great. Anyway, he says, because I've got nothing to rebel against. You're too reasonable and easy to talk to. Who would have thought that was a problem? Anyway, so I said, fine, go clean your room. And he never did. So rebellion taken care of. So yeah, you got to go with it. You got to figure stuff out as you go along too. And if you don't know what to do in the moment, just say, listen, I didn't like that. We'll talk about it later. It gives you time to think and then time to sweat. That's what I call deferred punishment. You can only do that as they get older. You can't do that with a little wee one. You can do that 4 and 5 years old for sure. Even 3, you can do that. If you're out somewhere and you can't deal with it right away. You always give me hope I have a chance to fix myself, not my teenager. Yeah, teenagers, they're my favorite age. Once you've got that mastered and you know how to deal with teenagers, you'll sail right through it. I'm going to read you my 3. Oh, sorry, the cold is bugging me. Sinus pain. Okay, my 3 top tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with. They will shut you out. They won't tell you anything. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. By the way, they already know it anyway, okay? So they'll tell you everything when you get good at listening. Number 2 is negotiate pretty much everything. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? Negotiate everything. Number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff. Allow them to make mistakes, just like you did. And say, yeah, that was stupid. Wait to hear what I did when I was your age. Save your energy for the big stuff. And then work it through with them. Become a problem solver in partnership with your kids. You know, like I never told my kids what to do. My mom never did either. I would say, Mom, what should I do? And she goes, I don't know. You're a smart girl. You could figure it out. And we'd talk about it. So I always felt like I always felt like I had a lot of control in my life, as did my kids, because we were working stuff out together. That's what leaders do. You bring out the best in them. You want them to be problem solvers. You do not want obedient little soldiers. That's the old-fashioned authority style parenting. They will rebel in the teen years. They'll come out the other end appreciating what you did for them, but they will rebel. And they could get into some real trouble during those years. And then the pleaser parent, that's a disaster. You're a dish rag. They're going to wipe their feet all over you. That's the one you go into the school trying to tell the teachers how to treat your kids. And, you know, they just grow into self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. I saw that coming 30 years ago. I thought, what a disaster. That's when the participation awards first were invented. What a stupid thing was that? You just get an award for just turning up? How entitled is that? How spoiled and entitled? Oh, it's ridiculous. So you never have to work for anything? You just turn up to your job and you sit there with your finger up your nose and you get paid? It's the same idea. Okay. My daughter has a meltdown every night before bed because she doesn't want to sleep. Any tips? Check out my Bedtime Battles course. It just has a system in place and how you get them to bed and then how you keep them there. It's 2 parts. It's a new course. It's up in the link above. Okay, I don't know what's going on today. People are having a hard time getting the behavior board. I don't know what you expect it to be. Like, maybe I got to go in there and check it out because maybe there's something going wrong with it today. That's probably the 20th person today that said they can't get the behavior board. But It's just two attachments at the bottom of the email that you get. Scroll down at the very bottom. There's two attachments. That is the behavior board. One is the instruction, then one is the sample of a behavior board. Shows you how to set it up, what it looks like. That's how it works. Isn't that funny? In one day, like all these people, I'll check into it after this. Must be some glitch. I don't know. Or maybe tons of people have just signed up, so it's a percentage thing. Because maybe I get one person a day who asks about that. But yeah, today's been a big day. Okay. My almost 2-year-old is making my life hell. Nothing I do works to correct him. Yeah, it's consistent corrective actions. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. They're going to learn maybe the 50th or 100th time you do something. But if you're not consistent, they'll never learn. They remember the time you didn't do anything. They'll remember the inconsistency. They just do. They don't have very good memories, except when you mess up. It's just what kids are. My son, it was funny. He was a teenager, and he was laughing at all the dumb things I'd done, all the mistakes I've made, and say, remember the time you did that? And I said, what about all the stuff I've done well? And he went, what? Okay, so here's my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Number 1 is childproof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2 is have a toy rotation system in place so they're never bored. Oh, sorry, I got to sign this cold. Oh, that hurt. Anyway, I swallowed and it just hurt. So anyway, sorry about that. And then number 3 is when you want to connect with your toddler. This is under the age of 3 I'm talking about. Toddlers are under the age of 3. 3 and 4 is preschooler. And when you want to connect with them, you don't take the 3-year-old to the nail salon. You go to the park and roll down the hill with them. So it's all about connecting in their world. If they're playing with blocks, you get down on their level or even lower, and you lay down on the floor and watch how they play, and you play with them. You kind of mirror them. They'll start to look at you differently. You're connecting with them. Okay. Number 4 is when you're disciplining a toddler, don't do the mini therapy sessions. It's not about words, discussing all the big feelings, big emotions, and all that garbage. That's for you. That's not for your toddler. It's about consistent corrective actions. They will learn, but it takes repetition and time and patience. They're just toddlers. They're crazy. And that leads to my 5th point. You don't try and figure them out. They're not figure-outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They're just forming. It's not even so much that they're crazy. They just haven't developed sanity yet. Okay, they're just little. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years, and that first year you were a potato laying on a mattress. Okay, they've got only just a marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. Don't expect too much. But I would say the 2 things that really help are the child-proof, so you never have to say no, and do a toy rotation system so they're never bored. That actually prevents a lot of problems. When do you comfort after a tantrum, or how do you proceed after a tantrum? Okay, you never comfort it. You never address a tantrum. Ever, never, 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 never. There's no point. If he can come up with a point, some of my clients are child psychologists, and one of them actually argued with me on that. By the end of it, she didn't. So anyway, I'll tell you my swing story. Anyway, okay, so the swing story. Sorry, I've just got a sinus cold. Just wait a sec. I'm going to have to go soon. It's just bothering me now. Anyway, so the swing story is the best way to explain how you do deal with the tantrum and how you don't deal with the tantrum. It's a true story. My son was 2 years old. I took him down to the park. And at the park, there was a new mom. She just moved into the neighborhood, so we hadn't met yet. And she also had a 2-year-old little boy. So we're introducing ourselves as we're putting our 2-year-old boys into the swings. And we're just chatting, hi, how are you, and all that mom stuff. So anyway, we're chatting. And you're always so excited when you run into another mom because you spend all your days with your toddler. You meet someone you can actually have a conversation with. You could tell we were both really excited. So anyway, we're trying to chat, and our little boys both started whining and pointing to the other swing. They wanted the other swing. So we just said, well, let's just switch them. Who cares? We just wanted to have a chat, right? They both started tantruming at the exact same time. This is what I did. I took my son over to the bench, and he went to run, and I sat him down on the bench, and then he went to run for the swing, and I put my arm out really quickly. He knew me by that. He knew that when mom says something or when mom does something, I'm going to follow through. So he just sat back and had a tantrum. And while he's doing that, I'm looking at the birds in the trees. I'm just like, look, I'm completely ignoring him. So anyway, he only tantrumed for about 2 minutes. And then as soon as he was done, I said, are y'all done? Okay, let's go back on the swing. I ignore the crazy and I reward the calm. Okay? Why would I discuss that? There's absolutely no point. Anyway, this is what the other mom did. So she brings the same thing. She brings her little boy over to the bench. She sits him down. And the whole time he's sitting there having a tantrum, went on for 20 minutes. She's talking to him, trying to hug him. Give me a hug. You know, if you'd just been nice and asked, please, we would have done that. You know, mommy's feelings are getting hurt. Your feelings. Calm down. Take a deep breath. It was all this garbage. Right? It's just garbage. Anyway, and she didn't know. She was doing the best she could. So it's just I had so much experience with kids before I had my own. I already kind of knew all this stuff. Anyway. So 20 minutes later, he finishes his tantrum. You know what she did? She berated him, went on and on about everything he did wrong. There was no reward for being calm. Where this kid was so confused by the end of it, so he was going through hell while the tantrum went on for 20 minutes because she was feeding it. Attention is tantrum food. She was feeding it. She wasn't allowing his brain to process it. Like I allowed my son. He was starting to catch on. He had a mother who knew how to ignore a tantrum. He was starting to catch on. This ain't working. I may as well stop doing it. His brain had connected that. They connect the dots after a while. There was no dots to connect. This mother was a disaster with this kid. It was painful to watch. So then 10 minutes, she's giving a therapy session about everything he did wrong, what he should do next time, how her feelings were hurt, his feelings were hurt. This kid finally, and it was a disaster, 30 minutes of hell for that mother and that child. We had well, it wasn't even hell for me. I didn't care. Anyway, 2 minutes, my son had a tantrum. He was back on the swing. We had a great time. You get it? But he already knew me. He knew that when I said something, and I knew what I was doing, I was training that he was connecting the dots, that, if I act like this, I'm not going to get what I want. As soon as I calm down, because I'm modeling calm behavior, I'm as calm as anything. I'm looking at the birds and the trees. I'm just waiting for him to join me. She joined him in his craziness. She became part of the crazy. I was part of the calm. I made my son join me. There's no way I would join the crazy. That's everything she did was wrong. She didn't know. She did her best, right? Parents always do what they know best, or what they know. They can't do what you don't know. Like whenever people hire me, they say, how come I couldn't figure that out? Well, I've spent 52 years with kids trying to figure this out. It's almost demeaning me that all that work was for nothing. I put a lot of time into this. I was volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11 years old, and I kind of had it figured out then. I always kind of had kids figured out. But anyway, so I was always working with kids. But this is a learned skill. You got to learn how to do this. It's something anyone can learn how to do. We're not basically born knowing how to parent. Very few of us instinctively know this stuff. It's just we all have something we're born with. That was just my thing. I was kind of born to mother. So we're all instinctively born knowing different things, or instinctively things come easier to us. So don't beat yourself up over this. You can learn how to do this. That's what I teach. That's why I'm out here teaching it. You should see the emails I get. Oh my God. They're just unbelievable. Oh my God, I couldn't believe I ever did that. You won't believe what I've done. They're so proud of themselves because they're just doing the work, doing what I tell them to do, and then it works. And I always say the same thing. I don't tend to take credit for that. I always say, yeah, I just guided you, but you did the work. Pat yourself on the back. It is work. Does that make sense? Why you ignore a tantrum? You don't reward the crazy, you reward the calm. Second that tantrum's over. You all done? You want to go on the swing? What would be the point in discussing the tantrum? No one's ever been able to explain that to me. What would be the point with a 2-year-old? What's the point in discussing that? I wouldn't even discuss it with an 8-year-old. What's the point? Okay. Can you explain childproofing? Okay, all my stuff was above the waist. When my kids were little, there was no plants on the ground. There was even curtains. If they went through a climbing or grabbing curtain phase, they were thrown up on the thing. I made the whole house childproof. Yeah, I chose to do that. Funny thing is, my kids weren't used to getting into things. So when we went to other people's houses, they were less likely to get into stuff than other kids were because they weren't used to being precocious. I had friends who say, oh my God, can you believe he was brushing his teeth with the toilet brush again? Like, why on earth would you allow a toddler to have access to a toilet brush? Oh, when he got into the cupboard again, he put the Vaseline all over the whole couch. Why on earth would you allow that? Well, he's got to learn. No, they don't. That's not how they learn. They don't need to do that. What if they're banging their head really hard? Yeah, that's when they get violent. You just restrain them. If they're hurting someone else, hurting themselves, or damaging property, you physically restrain them. Let go for a few seconds. If they start up again, grab them again. You just say no and then just look away. You're still ignoring them, but you're physically restraining them. Yeah, most of them do that. 5 points for preschool. Preschool, what do you mean, for preschool or preschoolers? Preschoolers is 3 and 4 years old. I don't know what you mean by that. How to prepare them for preschool, maybe? I don't know. Are you on Facebook? Not really. I'm pretty busy. Like I've got TikTok, Instagram. Instagram's going really well. I just went on there a few months ago, and that's going well. And then actually my views are way bigger on Instagram now. And I've only got, I think, 70,000 on there followers, and I've got 570,000 on here, but my video views are way bigger on Instagram. I don't understand social media. Anyway, YouTube, I'm just starting to sort of figure that out. But yeah, I don't know what I'm doing really. Kind of like to master one thing, get it settled, and then move on to something else. I don't like to spread myself too thin. The thing is, I never go on Facebook, so I don't know. Like if I don't enjoy something, why would I do it? I never look on there. I used to back in the day. Anyway, how do you not tell kids what to do but have that self-discipline, go to bed on time? I never told my kids what to do. They just, I have no memory of ever telling them to go to bed or do their homework or anything. None. They just understood, well, there's no TV tonight. If you don't go to bed on time tonight, then probably no TV tomorrow. They just understood. And I would say to them, did you argue with me? Like, they never did. But if they did, I would have said, yeah, I'll tell you what, tonight bedtime didn't go so well. So how about tomorrow there's no TV? Okay, do you understand? And then you do that with them and play games. They might hate your guts. You say, we've got no TV tonight. You want to play a game? No, I hate you. That's fine. When they calm down, ready for that game yet? You're always trying to connect with them. So my kids knew they got to do what they need to do before they can do what they want to do. But they never did it to please me. They never did it. They just understood you got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. They learned that from a really young age because I was always saying, of course you can watch TV. Of course you can play the PlayStation. Have you done your chores yet? Have you cleaned up after dinner? Have you done this? Oh, sorry, Mom. And then they'd run and do it. So they understood responsibility from a very young age. And I didn't expect too much. It was always age appropriate and reasonable. I always set my kids up for success, not failure. Yeah, I don't remember them ever arguing with me. Why would they? They might say something. I used to say, if you don't like what I'm saying, wait till we're finished and then come to me later. And they would. They'd say, Mom, I think bedtime's a little bit too early now. And then I'd say, you're right. Okay, how about you go to bed an hour later now? So they always knew they had a voice, but they always had to talk to me in a reasonable tone. And then we worked things out together. They always had a say in the way their life went. Do you recommend an age for switching from crib to bed? No, when they hit the floor, that's when I do it. When they flop out and hit the floor, that's when I instantly, the second both my kids did that, I dismantled their bed and then just put the crib mattress on the floor and put pillows around it. I got rid of the crib. Okay, how do parents correct a middle schooler at school holds, horrible stuff's going on? That's coaching. That's next level stuff. You want to hire me for coaching to help with that. That's big stuff. Okay, that's not a TikTok answer here. So yeah, if you want my help, that would be probably 5 sessions minimum. A lot of work to do there. So yeah, and you won't like the first session. No one does. If you've got really big stuff going on, the first session is all about sorting yourself out, sorting your emotions out. And we don't really get to work till about the 3rd session on the kid. We got to work on you first. We got to set you up to be strong enough to deal with what we have to do. So everyone says, well, what do I do today? I want something today. It's like when you go to take flying lessons. Everyone wants to know how to fly the plane the first day, or you wouldn't though, would you? You'd understand that. It's like that with parenting. You got to learn the dials first. You got to learn the techniques, the body language, the voice, how you talk to them, how you don't talk to them. I teach you all that stuff before we really get going. Yeah. Oh, just asking because you were that kid. Yeah. I can't answer that on here. That's the bigger stuff. I do, when I first started my business, Bratbusters, 17 years ago. I'll tell you a funny story why I named it that, by the way. I'll tell you that in a second. When I first started that, I specialized in teen crisis work or abuse. So I specialized in children who were abused, like sexually, emotionally, physically, and teen crisis work. So that was how I started my business. And then I used to do a lot of TV and radio as the parenting expert. And then someone introduced me on the 6 o'clock news as the crisis queen. And I didn't want to be that. Wasn't their fault. They didn't know. But I thought, I don't want to be the crisis queen anymore. I want to be the prevention. I don't want to be the queen, but I want to prevent all that stuff. That's my goal. So I still do the crisis work, but I don't lead with that in my business. Anyway, the name Bratbusters, I used to mentor troubled teens, and they're the ones who told me I should start. They used to say, you should teach this stuff, Lisa, because no one had talked to them like I did. And they used to say they didn't even like themselves until they worked with me. I made them like themselves. And that was the biggest compliment they could have given me. Anyway, they said, because you're always busting brats. So anyway, I kind of remembered that. And then when I started my business, years later, I started my business. And I went in this round table thing. I took this course on how to start a business, coaching business, whatever. I can't remember. Anyway, it was all the business end of it. And then, so we were throwing out names that we had. We had ideas for different names. There were 20 of us around this table. We were all starting our new businesses. It was a government-funded program that we were in for a couple of weeks. It was fantastic. Anyway, And then we were throwing out different ideas for names and everyone was voting on it. So we decided what to name our company. So I had a couple different names, but I really wanted Bratbusters. Anyway, the funny part was there was this woman there that hated my guts. She hated me. I'm very extroverted and I was laughing all the time and I was quite popular while we were there. She was very prim and proper. She couldn't stand the way I was just so, I don't know what was wrong with her, but I got in her craw and I knew she hated me. She was very serious and very just a know-it-all, right? No one liked her. Anyway, so, but she said, when I went around the room and I said, I really like Bratbusters, she said, oh, I would never name my company that. It's so abusive and so awful and so negative. And I said, Bratbusters it is. If she hated it, I never wanted to work with someone like her. And I thought she had no sense of humor. So she kind of helped me out. The person who couldn't stand me, she actually helped me out because I thought, boy, I just want to avoid anyone like that in my life. That was hilarious. And everyone else cracked up when I said, oh, Bratbusters it is. I don't know why she hated me. Anyway. I don't put up with bullying. Like I actually like handling people like that. Okay, so you got a 2-year-old interrupting. That's a little bit tricky with a 2-year-old, but it's something that they learn to do that, basically. Like my kids, I would have said no, and then I would have had something else going on. They never would have got a positive response. I know whenever I've been chatting with someone, they're trying to show that they're a really good parent. Yes, sweetie, they always answer their kids. And you know darn well they don't want to, but they're trying to look like they're this loving, involved mother. You're actually looking worse because you're making it look like the child's in charge, and people are annoyed by that. So yeah, my kids never would have got a positive reaction to that. I would have said no, and I would have pushed them away. And they learned, they just didn't, because they were I was very attentive to them. They had no reason to bother me when I was talking to someone. They learn from a really young age. So yeah, make sure there's no positive reaction to that. No, so I got a cold. My ears are popping now. Jeez, a little mess. I did do the test. I don't have COVID. I had COVID earlier this year. I had it in March, exactly 3 years after it started, I got it. And I was all filled up with vaccines, so it was just turned out like a cold, but this isn't COVID. It's funny. I almost felt embarrassed getting it so late. I'm glad I didn't get it because I've got a lot of lung issues with asthma and that. Okay. Okay. How would you handle it if a teenager says they want therapy, then 10 days later they change their mind? I wouldn't ignore that. I wouldn't let that go. If you want my help, you'd have to hire me. How to go about discerning whether or not something's going on. What happens is teenagers often do ask for help and then they change their mind, they lose their nerve, or they just have a happier day. But if they're wing-banging back and forth between being depressed and being happy, yeah, I don't ignore that. So if you want my help, you'd have to hire me, coaching for that. Teenagers scare the bejeebies out of me if they talk about being depressed or anything like that, because you never know what they're going to do. They scare the bejeebies out of me. I'll tell you what, it's a funny story. My son was getting moody. He was 15 years old. It was really weird. And usually when I'm hired by parents who have teenagers, if it's a girl, it's generally 12 to 16, most commonly. With boys, it's 14, just turned 15. It's right at that age. It's bizarre. Almost all parents who have teenage boys just turned 15. The huge percentage of them. Anyway, that's when their hormones kick in big time, big time. Testosterone's a lot to deal with, okay? Plus you get all the social pressures out there in the world. Anyway, this is a funny story. My son was 14 and we were like best buddies. Every single morning I'd say morning, and I'm a morning person and I'm very cheery basically. So morning, sweetie. And he'd always go, morning, mom, with his voice cracking and I'd laugh. It was great. One morning he was starting to grow up. He went from 5'6" to 6 feet tall in 6 months. And he was right around 15, or didn't grow up till he was 16, didn't get that height, but it was kicking in at 15. Anyway, so one morning I got up and he was just looking bigger. He was standing at the kitchen sink. I don't know, he just looked different. His body language was different. And I said, morning, sweetie. And he turned around and he went, morning, mom. He turned into a man overnight. Like, it was really freaky. All of a sudden, he wasn't my girlfriend anymore. We didn't chat about everything. He was turning into a man. So I said to him, you just seem different. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, mom. I just want to be left alone and do my PlayStation, you know. So I said, are you depressed? Are you doing drugs? No, mom, I'm just growing up, you know, get off my back kind of stuff. So okay, sweetie, okay, fine. And I always told my kids, I respect your privacy unless I'm worried about you. So he goes off to school one day and I went into his room and I ransacked and I'm looking for drugs because he was so different. I thought, you know, I'm not stupid. Maybe he's doing drugs or something. Anyway, I ransacked his whole room. I turned over drawers looking for drugs taped under I just lost my nut, right? Like kook, because he was such a good kid. Anyway, but he'd gone gothic too. He looked really scary. He went all goth. So, I mean, he had some signs going on that maybe he's doing something. So anyway, he comes home and I was passed out on his bed and I was covered in all of his stuff. He opened up his bedroom door, saw me. he said, what did he say to me? He said, oh, well, aren't you a sight? And he walked away laughing. So yeah, no big deal. But yeah, you know, I was worried about him. So it can happen to the best of us. And I had tons of experience with teenagers, but also I worked with delinquent teenagers. So I worked with kids who were doing the worst, you know, so maybe that had something to do with it too. How would you convince teens to go to therapy? You don't. You talk to them about it. You don't. You want them to go, but you don't talk to them about going to therapy. You assess the situation. If you want my help, you'd have to hire me. That's not something I can talk about on TikTok. I don't know what's going on. I'd have to assess the situation, and then I could guide you, hopefully, in the right direction. No guarantees with any of this stuff. I just speak from experience, that's all. Plus, you know, people always say, how do I get my kids to do this and that? I don't know what kind of parent you are. So how can I tell you how to say something to them if I don't know what your history is with your teenager? They're not allowed to restrain your kid. In childcare, there's no discipline. I can't talk about that because I'm not a childcare person. So I don't comment on schools or anything. But I've spent probably thousands of hours in the back of classrooms assisting teachers, helping them with the challenging kids. I did all volunteer. That was what I was doing. I loved it. That's where I learned a lot. And then I became a teen mentor and for troubled teens, and that was fascinating. So yeah, I have the utmost respect for anyone who cares for other people's kids. I could not, like in a classroom situation, a group situation, I couldn't do it. I so admire teachers and daycare workers, and it's hard. Do you ever plan on writing a book? I have a whole bunch of plans that I want to do one day, but I've got a lot on my plate right now. You know, I've been working on TikTok's going well, and now I'm focusing also on Instagram. That's going really well. And then I'll move over to YouTube, and then hopefully that triangle I'll be quite happy with. And then I might look into writing a book or getting a podcast going too. I'm not sure yet, though. It just depends. You know, what I've learned about business is you've got to let the people tell you what they want. So, yeah, I'll see how I'm going, how things progress as they go along. But, you know, you can't do it all in one go. When I first came on TikTok, I'll be honest, I blew up overnight. Did not see that coming at all. I was shocked. And because everyone wants my audience. You should see the stuff that people tried to get me involved in because they want my audience, you see. So they say, how about we do this together? How about we do? And some really big names came at me because they want to duet with me, and I said no to everything. Yeah, I just like to do it organically, and then you guys tell me what you want down the road as we're going along. So I might, when I'm ready to do a podcast or a book, then I'll start researching that and asking what you want. And my dream has always been this. That's always been my dream, is to coach people live online somewhere. Could be a podcast. I like video though. Could be on YouTube. I like coaching people live, and I would love that if I could just coach them live. And that would obviously be free by the people I'm coaching. But yeah, that would be, because then you could relate to them and you could see how this all goes. So it would be really relatable. And that's what I would like, because I think a lot of parents feel that there's something wrong with them because they're yelling at their kids. They might be hitting their kids, spanking them. They just feel totally out of control. But if you saw the parents that I coach, they are not losers. They are winners. A lot of them are teachers, principals, child psychologists, lawyers, doctors, and they're struggling. So you're not the only one. There's nothing wrong with you. You just haven't got the experience yet. You just haven't learned how to lead. So it's teachable. So that's really always been my dream in my business. I just never knew quite how to do it. And but anyway, one day I'll do that. I really want to do live coaching. Not exclusively just that, but coaching's my favorite thing to do. So because you kind of get to know people. Yeah, I love that. Okay, you said my brother's 15, doesn't want to go to school. Any tips? I would have to assess the situation. There's absolutely no tips that I could give you without knowing how he's parented, the situation, why he doesn't want to go to school, what's going on with him. That is something I would have to assess it. It's sort of like saying I've got a sore finger, what's wrong with me? A doctor would have to take x-rays and, I would have to assess the situation. Couldn't possibly figure that out. Wouldn't have one single tip without asking lots of questions first. Huh? How do you get a toddler to listen after having a second baby? I've tried a lot. I would say that's my biggest failure in coaching, in that it gets the least results. You're just in the thick of it. Toddlers don't listen. They just don't. They're not about listening. They're about impulse. And they will eventually learn how to control themselves as long as you're a calm leader. When they're doing stuff you don't like, you got to be calm and consistent corrective actions. They will eventually learn. But it is an investment in time. It's not something that you can teach them right now. Imagine if let's say your husband brought home a new wife. How would you react to that? That's as upsetting to them having a new baby in the house. It's like, it's just a huge change. They have to share everything, and this baby stinks and screams, and it's a big ask for a toddler to just calm down when a new baby comes into the house. It's a big ask. So yeah, it just takes time. That's why it's the least results driven thing in my business, because I always say it's time. It's a slow burn. It's not going to happen overnight, and there's no talking. They don't get that. I won't read that again. I already read it. I have a whole bunch of stuff I read all the time. My advice is just, I've never read a book on parenting or anything. Kids taught me all this. It's just, I just do what works. I figured it out. Practical common sense parenting. It's just common sense to me that you give respect to get it. You have to give it to get it, though. A lot of parents, especially with teenagers, say, well, they never respect me. And I say, so you still give it. It's more give than take. A lot of parents with teenagers really struggle with that. You know how he treats me? Yeah, I've seen it. Yep, I've seen it. You still got to give respect. Yeah, they fight me on that. They really do. They really, because their feelings are hurt. They're upset. They're hurt. They're emotionally damaged from what their teenager, how they've been treating them. And I say, you still have to treat them with respect. Yeah, they hate that. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. It's my favorite thing, teenagers. I love that. Because that's the one where parents come to me with the biggest problems, and I can make the biggest differences. Because I love teenagers. So, but the parents are the struggle, getting them to let go of their own hurt feelings and move forward in a positive way. It's a big challenge. I love it. Okay. When does the toddler stage stop? No one's ever asked me that. Isn't that funny? You would think they would ask that every single day. No one ever says, when do they finish being toddlers? About 3, especially 3.5. But around 3, they can start. Now, hear me out. They can start to reason. It doesn't mean they're going to, but they mentally start to have the capacity to think before they act. They can start to understand consequences. That's why you start the behavior board at the age of 3 and not before. But yeah, toddler, it usually really stops at about 3. Okay, let me read the 4 stages in parenting. Where did I put that? So I've got it somewhere. Just a second here. It's bothering me now. There's 4 different stages in parenting. Oh, there they are. Okay. So, and it's not about the kids. It's about you, because the ages are very vast differences, but you're still the same parent in one of them. So your first stage as a parent, you're parenting a baby, 0 to 15 months. It's more just nurturing, picking them up when they cry. It's all love, 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 connecting with them, bonding with them. Then you go into the toddler stage. That's 16 to 35 months. I just made up those ages, by the way. That's the way I view it. So a toddler is 16 to 35 months. They're usually up on their feet by that time. They're starting to say a few words. So, and then they're not 3 yet. So at that age, that's when you start to do consistent corrective actions, and you're starting to teach them right from wrong, okay? And you're starting to get your leadership stuff sort of happening. Then the big one is 3 to 12. That's why my course, the boot camp course, is 3 to 12 years old. They're very different at 3 than they are at 12, but you're not. You're in full leadership mode, full leadership mode. That is when they want to please you. They look up to you. They look to you for everything. 3 to 12 years old. That's when you are the strongest at your leadership. Then you change again and you have a teenager 13 plus. This is where most parents really struggle. You have to start letting go and you have to start letting them make mistakes. Test things out. If you've got a good relationship and you've been a really good leader, they're going to come to you and tell you everything anyway. I told my mom everything. My kids told me everything, because we were good leaders. We were a safe place to land. And, but yeah, so those are the 4 stages of parenting. So the toddler is my least favorite. I like them when they were at home. But when I took them out, there's no relaxing. There's no socializing. You're just watching them constantly. It's just, because it's so physically demanding. It was my least favorite age. It's the toddler stage. When we were home, I thought they were adorable, like fun, but not when I took them out. I hated taking toddlers out into the world. It's just constant watch, because I'm a safety nut too. It's constant watching them. I'm going to tell you a funny story. It really has nothing to do with anything, but it just cracks me up every time I think about it. My son was a very cautious little boy. I won't go into it, but he didn't learn how to swing or ride a bike till he was really late. And his PE teacher said he was worried about him. And I said, no, he's just very cautious, which I was thrilled about because I never really had to worry about him, right? Anyway, I've got 2 funny stories with him, but one of them was, oh shoot, which one should I tell? Well, one of my favorites was he went on this swing. There was a water park we went to, and it was my husband and I, and our son was about 18 months old. He was a very nervous little boy. He didn't want to go through that. It was a water slide, but it was one that went it was like round around, had the water going down and everything. It was just a normal pool, but it had this big water slide. He didn't want to go down it. Well, I was trying to teach him to be a little bit more adventuresome, right? I was trying to teach, because he was very cautious. So I said to my husband, just throw him down. So my son was coming down. Now he was all slathered up with sunscreen. It was hot in Australia where we lived. It was a very hot day. So he's coming down. As he's coming down, his face was like this. He was terrified. Well, I started laughing because it just struck me as so funny how horrified. All these other kids are going down this thing. It was a little kiddie one. It wasn't even a big one. All the other kids are going down having a great time. My kid's like horror stricken. So I started laughing so hard that when he came out of the chute, I couldn't even catch him. He was all slathered up and I was laughing. So he went right through me and he dove into the water. No wonder why this poor kid was terrified. Anyway, I picked him up and I was so weak in the knees from laughing, I could barely hold him up. He did fine. He went down at lots after that. But anyway, that was funny. So I couldn't even catch him. I was laughing so hard and he was all slathered up. And he shot out of there really fast. Anyway, he survived. And another one that is one of my favorite stories with him, he was almost 5 years old. And I know he was just 2 weeks shy of being 5 because my daughter was born 2 weeks later. And he was still very cautious. Anyway, we went, I don't know why, I had like baby brain. I was like 8.5 months pregnant. And I took him to Hungry Jack's in Australia. That's Burger King here, but in Australia, they're called Hungry Jack's. And we'd never been to this playground before. So anyway, I got him an ice cream there or something. It was another summer hot day because I had summer babies, which is really stupid in Australia. Anyway, so we went there and then he said, can I go down the slide? And it was one of those giant slides where it had like a cage that you had to walk up on the ladder just to protect you. It was a really tall, steep slide, but all these little kids were going down it, much younger than him. They're climbing up and then it's all enclosed like a tube and it goes down like this. And I don't know why. He said, can I go up the slide? And I said, sure. Now, I don't know why I said that because I knew once he got to the top, he was going to get scared, but I wasn't thinking. So it was a hot day. I was eating ice cream, whatever. No excuse for it. So he gets to the top and he goes, I'm scared. And I instantly thought, oh God, no. And so other people around said, look, we'll go up and get him. And I said, no. And I could see he was starting to panic. He was starting to panic. So I said, no, he just wants mom. I'm going to have to go up. I had this giant belly and this really narrow cage to go up. I had to climb up this really narrow cage. And I was trying to move my belly as I was going up each step. And I was sweating like a hog. It was so hot out. And I finally get to the top and he sees me and he goes like that because he knows me. I picked him up and I chucked him down the slide without saying a word. So he went down. I could hear his head hitting the side as he's going down. He comes to the end. He goes shooting out and he lands right on his back. So I said, move out of the way because I had to come down now. I couldn't get back down the ladder. So I went down. I'm trying to protect the baby as I'm going down and I landed on my back too. So then when I landed on my back, he looks at me and he goes, can I go again? I said, no, I could have killed him. So we went home after that. But anyway, he was a very cautious little boy, which worked out really well overall because he never seemed to get hurt, right? Oh, anyway, those are 2 of my favorite stories with my son. What's the behavior board? That's the last thing I'll talk about because my voice is sore. The behavior board teaches you how to set rules and consequences for your children. You are on there too. You have a rule and you have a consequence. So the children learn about accountability and you lead by example. Okay. So if you're not accountable, how can you expect your kids to be? Remember, they're not listening to you, they're watching you. So they do as you do. So if you're accountable, they're more likely to be accountable. But anyway, it teaches you how to do that. It's free up there. Also, I have my mini toddler courses. There's 4 of them. The Bedtime Battles one just came out 2 weeks ago. It's brand new. And then I also have my big course. That's my boot camp course. Teaches you how to get respect in 5 weeks by being a leader. And don't rush that. It takes 5 weeks minimum. Anyway, and then the next level up is coaching one-on-one with me. That's all done on Zoom. It's usually 1 hour per week, or however it works out. And that's the top level up there. So anyway, check that all out. It's all in the link above. I gotta go. I got a cold. So my throat's really sore, but I love coming on here. So I'm really on Instagram a lot right now too. So I'm going back and forth. If I'm not on here doing a live, I'm probably on Instagram. So each day I'll be doing a live. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be back again soon. Bye now.